Me, in America is very challenging with my background. Things that I experience is hard. Sometimes it's challenging for me, but what every time I tell myself, I say, you know what? You have people around you, but you have those people, but the thing that you have to believe within yourself. So I use prayer to lead me. And I tell myself by repeating words to myself and say that never give up because I know I believe in myself and I know that I can make myself to be magical to pass through my own problems.
Welcome to Africa and Us. I'm your host, Nathan Araya. On today's show, we have Grace Freeman. At 8 months old during a civil war in Liberia, Grace and her family fled to live at a refugee camp in Ghana. At age 7, Grace was taken away from her family to live as a child slave for 11 years. Grace now travels to speak and uses her story to bring awareness, hope, and change through events and media outlets around the world. I spoke with Grace about her experience of being a refugee and child slave, her passionate pursuit of becoming a nurse, and continuing her work as an advocate for change to help others fight for education and freedom. This is Africa and Us. Welcome everyone to Africa and Us. I'm your host, Nathan Araya, and we have a remarkable human being from West Africa, Liberia, that was in a refugee camp for 20 years and a former child slave for 11 years, and is now using her story to impact lives all around the world. Her name is Grace Freeman. Grace, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, too.
So Grace, I'm excited about this story, and I'm excited just to kind of get to know you a little more and for our audience to know you more as well. At 8 months old, a civil war broke out in your home country of Liberia, and your family then fled to a refugee camp in Ghana. Can you open up and just tell me a little bit about your experience growing up as a refugee in Ghana, and what were some of the challenges that you faced?
So growing up as a refugee in Ghana was a tough life because in general being a refugee isn't exciting things for people to embrace because it comes with a lot of struggle. And being a child and fleeing from my country 8 months and growing up at an early age there was challenging. So the first things that you come across is that one, you don't have home, in the sense that you don't have shelter, you don't have place to really sleep. And we used to sleep in a open field area like full of grass and things, so we have to like clear the grass up. But as time went back, UN was able to build tents on the camp for refugees. So each family head will have a tent. So if you are 15 members or 20 members, you're gonna stay, every one of you gonna stay in that tent. And also when it comes to food, we didn't have food, so we have to make our own gardens. We didn't have clean waters and stuff, so we used to walk miles just to go look for a water place to have water to drink. And because of that, also not having good food or food and sleeping hungry and stuff like that, a lot of people too got ill from that. And most the common sickness that were on the camp was typhoid, malaria, and cholera. Those things were the one that actually killed people. Those were the sicknesses, struggle that we were also facing, and also facing those other physical struggle of our life.
Huh. Well, hearing your vivid explanation of the refugee camp experience is truly heartbreaking, especially when it can be displayed slightly different in other places around the world. Now, when you were 7 years old, your mom sent you away to seek education with a prominent woman from Liberia, but in the process, you became a child slave. What happened there?
So as a child, when I reached at the age of 7 years old, after seeing most of the things that happen, from being one or two or whatsoever age, 5, 6, like that, you know, it's bad and it's hard to see that people are every day getting sick, vomiting, dying from cholera and typhoid. That broke my heart, and I told my mom that I want to save everyone life. I want to be a doctor. So, but in order to be a doctor, I have to go to school. I want to go to school. So that was my passion, is to go to school, or was to go to school and become someone big like a doctor and help everyone life on that camp to stop people from dying. So I talked to my mom. I said, you have your friend who comes to you all the time for prayers, because my mom was a spiritual mom to a lot of people and a spiritual mom to that lady that I'm talking about. And my mom said, I don't know, but I will try. And also, this refugee school, they have school on the camp, but it's not because it's refugee school, it means that it was free, but it wasn't free. People have to pay to go to school there in order to pay those other people who were teaching us to give us education. So it wasn't a free school to say, oh, I just need book and pen to go. No, you have to pay for it. But it wasn't expensive. But at that time, my mom didn't have money to even pay for things that weren't expensive. So that's how I told her to talk to this lady who, little bit has some wealth, even if it is financial wealth or whatsoever wealth that she had, but she was more better off as my, than my mom. So, and she said, oh, okay, but you should know that we are refugees, so I don't think it's going to happen. I said, yes, I know, but I'm not, want to be refugee, but I want to go to school to save lives and stuff, save people life. So she said, okay, I will try to talk to mommy when she comes. So in the evening time, because the woman usually comes at evening time for prayers, and my mom, when she came, my mom, after the prayers and stuff, I was sneaking. Then I listened to their conversation. And my mom asked her, saying that, can my daughter Grace stay with you? She really want to go to school. If you can help me to, let her go to school, because she always says she wants to go to school and become a doctor. And the lady said, yes, I can take her. So my mom and her arranged it and stuff. And when she left, because I already knew, because I listened to the conversation, so my mom told me, said, oh, you'll be going to mommy place so and so time. So she's gonna, come for you so and so day for you to stay with her. And I was happy to go because, as a kid, the first thing you have in your mind, you say, oh, you want this to happen. And if someone say, I'm going to let it happen, you're going to be excited. You're not even going to think about your parents to say, oh, you want to stay in that house or stay in that place that you stay in because you want a better life. So it makes you excited that you're going for something good. So when I left my mom's house in 1997, and I was 7 years old at that time. And when I left, things were fine. The few, weeks that I was there for, things were really fine. I won't say, oh, it wasn't fine. Things were fine, but as time went back, everything changes. What I was expecting wasn't happening anymore again, and then my dream actually became dark. So instead of it being like an excitement dream that I was, that printed in my head that how I wanted to be, to go to school and save lives and stuff, it started becoming darker because I didn't get what I expected. So that makes my dream to change from being bright to being sad and being, unhappy with where I was. But being 7 years old also, you look back and you calculate how the refugee camp looks like. you will make a decision. Do you want to go back home or do you want to stay? Do you want to sacrifice to get what you say you want or do you want to go back? So it was kind of like, also a sacrifice thing because it's a refugee camp. You have, whether you stay, you go back, it's almost like the same life and stuff. But the difference is that if you are a child and being abused, then that's different than being with your actual parents. But also because my mom was a single parent, and that even makes it harder to stay with her because some days we go hungry, or the little food she has, she's gonna cook it and give it to us, and then she would rather stay hungry without eating. So she rather make us eat the food that she made, the small food that she cooked, than her eating.
I can't imagine. You were 7 years old, seeking education, showed up to this lady's house, and now have become her slave. What did a typical day look like for you from there on out?
So I had like 3 hours of sleep.
A
So
day?
yes, I wake up like 5 in the morning and I have to sweep because everyone on the refugee camp, everyone has their spot, their area. You cannot cross your yard and walk into someone's yard and make mess or do
Right.
something crazy there. So everyone had a boundary.
And there's
So
40,000 people, right?
yes, and it's big camp. It was a big camp and a lot of people in there. So you don't want to disrespect other people boundary. You have to respect people as you respect, your place. So when I wake up, the first thing, my first chore that I have to do in the morning is to sweep the entire yard. And it's dust. It's like dusty, yeah. It's not like to say you had, like cement covering the entire yard. No, 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 no. It's kind of like a dusty, it's dust. You live in the dust. So I have to take the broom and I will sweep the entire yard. And then when I finish sweeping, then I have to walk miles to go look for water to fill the barrels. So we had those big barrels in the place that we will use the bucket because you cannot roll the entire barrel to the water place and then it's going to be hard to bring it back.
Yeah.
So I used to walk back and forth with buckets or with gallons on my head trying to fill that big barrel up, and I will have to do that and then light the fire. I light the charcoal, make fire, and put water on to heat for her grandchildren because she also had grandchildren in the house. So I have to do that. Um, Bathe them, take them to school, come back home, and I also have school to go to. But I never used to go most of the time to school because I was always late. And if you are late, you go to school, you're gonna get beaten by it. It's not like, oh, you go to school in America, yeah, you just walk in class, you sit in your seat. No, you go to school in Africa, you're late, you're gonna get beaten for
Yeah.
it, and you're gonna do a work. They're gonna give you punishment that you will I'd rather either sweep the entire school compound or you be beaten by it and sent home. And
Wow.
then the next day they tell you that if you come late again, they're gonna repeat exactly the same thing that they did to you.
What
So
were
I used to
what
be
were the
afraid.
what were the reasons why you were late to school?
The reason why I was late because I worked. I worked.
I
So I
see.
didn't have time to go to school. So before I finish doing all the chore, it's already late for me to go to school. And
Right.
sometimes I really want to go to school. And I would sacrifice to go to school to get beaten by my teachers. Until one day, one of my math teacher called Mr. Yanti. He said, "Why you always late?" Because I was trying to sneak in the classroom and he actually caught me. And he said, "Why you sneaking? You late. Why you always late? Why do I always have to beat you?" And that's how I told him, I said, the reason why I'm always late because I work every time. That's why I don't come to school soon, or that's why I miss classes, days. So I had gap in my education also. So I wasn't going to school like every day of my life. No. Some days I go, some day I don't go, and I'm late most of the time. All those things are happening. And that's how he asked me, he said, who are your parents? Are you staying with your parent on the refugee camp? And I said, yes. He said, no, you lying to me because if you were staying with your parent will not allow you to come to school late all the time. So tell me the truth. And I said, yeah, I live with my mom, yeah. And he said, you better tell me the truth. So that's how I told him. I said, oh no, I live with this lady. And he said, why the reason why living with this lady? And I told him, oh, because I want to go to school. I want to come to school. That's why I'm living with this lady. And he asked me, is your mom on the camp? I said, yes, my mom stay on the camp. And he said, then why your mom have to give you to this lady? And, you always working and you late and we have to beat you. You go home, you get beaten too by the lady. So and I told him about the financial part of it. And that's how he said, okay, but I'm going to follow you to the lady to the house to tell her to stop beating you. And then I told him, I said, no, 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 you don't follow me because if you follow me, you're going to make the beating worse for me. She's going to think that I'm spoiling her name around to people, and that will not be good for me. If you and he said that I'm gonna stay there to see if she's gonna beat you. I said, even if you stay to the house, she will beat me in front of you to prove to you that she's not afraid to hurt me. So matter of fact that don't go follow me to tell her, what to do with me because I will get beaten by her. So I wasn't afraid to tell people, about the life that I was living, but I was mostly afraid about the abuse that I was getting by this person.
Grace, you're such a strong human being. I mean, dealing with constant abuse and domestic violence, what kept you alive? And every day when you're going through this, how did you see hope to live another day?
So what really actually kept me alive was a place that I created, like, because you're going through all this hardship and stuff. Your life is like non-stop life in as little as you are, but you try to one day like find something that will give you peace. And that's what I did because I know that I couldn't escape from things that I was, doing at that time. But because of my mom being a spiritual person and praying all the time, also helped me to learn how to pray, to find God, to believe that, God is there and God is watching. So I believe that He will actually give directions to what I'm struggling with until I found this place in the lady house. It had like a broken door. It's like the door was just leaning against the wall in the hallway part of the house. But behind that broken door had a lot of trash and it had a lot of dirty clothes behind it. But I didn't find it to be ugly because that place was actually like my peace area. That was the place that I would go and sneak after I work long hours in the house. I go sell on the street because I wasn't just working in the house. Also, I used to go sell on the street. I used to go sell food on the street, and I would come home 12 midnight and stuff because when I go sell the food, mommy used to tell me that if you go sell this food today and if it doesn't finish, don't come back home. Make sure that food finish before you come back home. Whether it's raining, dew falling, sun shining, be there until that food finish before you come home. So, but experiencing those things, but that door, behind that door was my peace. It's where I used to sneak. I used to hide from people because I get tired. I'm small. And then, you work, 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 work. Sometimes I feel like passing out and stuff because my body couldn't handle it, even though God helped me through the process, but filling my body up, giving me all those energy to keep going and stuff. But sometimes I just needed time, to sit somewhere, cry about what I'm going through, ask God to, give me direction. What is my next step, with this life? with this thing that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
So I used to sneak behind the door and I would sit there because the door had behind the door had that close. So what I used to do, and I used to cover myself with
Yeah.
the dead clothes, and I would hide myself there, and I would just lay in those trash area in the dead clothes. But when I closed my eye, after like I cried because it was painful and I grieve a lot, so I cry about it, cry about my pain, in the eyes and pray to God. But then when I close my eyes, I will see myself, traveling, doing amazing things for people. But I didn't know it was called meditation because I didn't know anything about the word meditation. All I knew at that age that I close my eyes, I see something happening, I see myself moving, I see myself like a spirit, moving from one place to another place. So that's what I knew at that age is that just closing my eyes and seeing myself and praying. So prayer and meditation was my peace. It was the thing that I did that makes me happy. And it was the thing that actually, gave me direction to be who I am today.
Wow. Well, prayer meditation is definitely a powerful tool that we have as believers. I definitely do agree. Now, going through all of this, there was a moment that you sought and fought for your freedom. What happened that day, and how did you muster up the courage to actually leave the house?
So it was one day that I was outside because, I do all the chore and things in the house. So I was washing the dishes. And imagine you have like about 15 people in the house. So you should know the amount of dishes and pots, spoons, all those things that I have to clean, wash them. So I had those things outside of the house and I was washing them in a large tub of water because that's how I know how to wash things. No, no washing machine there. So I
Right.
have to wash them by hand. So
I get you.
I was I was washing the dishes and stuff. And then this war, and but mom at that time, I mean, kind of like left the house. But before then, she and I had a little bit kind of like misunderstanding because at that time, UN was repatriating people from the camp back to Liberia. So there was a repatriation that was about to happen on the camp. And then mommy said, "Oh, I'm going to take you to Liberia with me." And at that time, she had my UN ID card, and the UN ID card was given to every refugee on the camp to have. It's like your document, but it was in a card form. It was there to give notice to other people who will see you and not cause harm for you, not to hurt you or those things. Because when they see you with that refugee card, UN card, it means that you are under the umbrella of UN, so they have no right to do something bad to you because you are UN property. So, but that card too was also, I wasn't keeping that card. The card was held by mommy. So when UN started to talk about repatriation, and repatriation was about to happen, and mommy stated that, "Oh, you're gonna follow me to Liberia. I'm gonna take you to Liberia." And then that was the time I told her no. So that was the first time that I ever said no to her because I was told not to touch things that wasn't belongs to me, things that were even belongs to me. I wasn't allowed to touch them until someone gave me order to say, take this thing or touch that thing. So I used to be afraid to even do things that I think that I'm supposed to be doing, but because the way I was taught to not do them, so it caused more fear in me. So mommy actually took the ID card and I'm sure that she was about to go and register me secretly because if you stay in a house and you guys are 15 or 20, 25, if the head of that house the head of that house has the right to go and register you. So it doesn't mean that you has to be present. That person has to be present to do the registration for repatriation. But if your mom, your uncle, whosoever, adult that is there in the family that is seen as a head, they have the right to go and register you for repatriation. So I think that was what she was about to do, to take the ID card, since now I told her that I don't want to go to Liberia with her. I want to go back home. And then she stated that you're going to go back. I mean, you're going to follow me to Liberia, and because you are a slave and you are born slave, so you're going to follow behind me. Who are you to tell me no, by the way? So, so that causes fear. I know she was powerful woman, and she also created fear in me. That's what I couldn't escape. That's what I couldn't do things for myself. But speaking to her and using that word and telling her, no, I don't want to follow you, but I want to stay on the camp and live with my family, I think that's also causes fear to her and make her to take my ID card and was trying to register me for repatriation secretly. So, but in the process, I don't know what happened, and she left the cat on the table and she left the house. So I saw her leaving the area, and I was washing the dishes outside. So I saw the direction that she went in, but I didn't know where she was going. So washing the dishes outside, and then I heard this voice in my head saying, Grace, go inside. So the first thing, I look around to see if it was someone standing behind me and saying, Grace, go inside. But then I like, oh, who calls me Grace? Everyone calls me dog. So I look around, but I knew my name is Grace because that's the name that was given to me by my mom. But then when I look around, I didn't see anyone, so I decided to continue washing the dishes. And then the voice came back again saying, Grace, go inside. And I look around, I didn't see anyone, so I turned around back and I was washing the dishes again. And then the voice came back for the third time, but in a very strong, aggressive tone, like a kid who's making trouble, and your parent is telling you, oh, stop, stop, stop. And then you don't want to listen, and then they kind of like stream at you so they can get your focus. So that was how it was. And then I started talking to myself when the voice came stronger back, telling me to go inside. And then I said, for what? And I turned around, I started talking to myself, and I started talking to the open air, to whatsoever voice, that was telling me to go inside. And I said, for what? Why am I going inside for? So I said, okay, I'm going inside. So I started to walk in the house. And when I walked, I stood up like maybe 6-7 feet away from the table where the cat was placed, and I saw a white thing on the table. And then I was afraid to go closer to the cat, but also I knew that, oh, mommy is not in the house. But even that, I was also afraid, because I said, I don't know where she went, so she might catch me creeping over the cat and looking over it, and I would get beaten by that. So I took my own time to walk to the table to see what was on the table. So when I went closer to the table, I saw it was a cat, and on the cat was my image. So I could identify my image, me on the cat, because it's me. And I could also identify my name on the cat, because my mom beat me to learn how to spell my name. It was 2 words that I learned how to spell when I was a kid. The 2 first words was my name, Grace, And the second was to spell water, water. I will never forget. And I got beaten, like I got really beaten to memorize my name, especially with my name.
Grace and
I
water.
got beaten, yeah. I got beaten for, to memorize how to spell my name. But because I couldn't read at that time, so I didn't know what the rest of the other words said on the card. All I knew was it was my card because I'm on my picture is on it and the name Grace is on it. And then I said to myself, should I take this card? And I started to think because I started to get fear right away. And I said, if I take this card, mommy gonna beat me for stealing because she's like, if you steal, I'm gonna put your hand in the hot oil because that was how people used to punish kids at that time. They'll take the hot coke spoon and stick it on your hand that stole the fish or that stole something. And I don't want that punishment because I already get beaten. So I said, I'm not going to take the card. So I was still standing around the table deciding on what to do. And then I said, I look up to God and I said, God, I have never stolen before. But I think you call me in there to make me take this card. So I would take this card. So I took the card and signed my cross and I put the card in the top part of the dress that I was wearing. And I ran out of the house because I wanted to do things on time as soon as possible before mommy gets back. Because I never know when mommy come back home. When she leaves, she walks like, like she can walk on you. So if you're doing something sneaky, she's gonna sense that you're doing something sneaky and she's gonna beat you for it. You're gonna tell her, she's gonna force you to make her to confess to her that what you're doing. And if it's something that is not favor of her, you're gonna get beaten for that. So because of that fear, and I said I have to run quickly. But running also, I was deciding who to go to because I needed someone, to trust. And the only person at that time that I trusted was Levi, who was her brother. And he was the one who sometimes used to advocate for me when he comes to our house when she's abusing me or making me to work in the long hours and things like that. Used to tell her to stop making me to work and say, this is another person's child. The way you treat your children is different from the way you treat this person's child. So you need to stop. You didn't take the woman's daughter from her place to treat her like your slave. So you need to stop. So he was the one, because of all those things, without the help, because I saw him on the refugee camp as a father. Because in life, you growing up, you become lost. But if you have one person who's showing you affection, as a father, you become attached to them.
Right.
And that's what happened. I became attached to him because I saw him as a person who would stand for me, who would tell mommy, you know what, who would wrestle with mommy in words and say, you're not going to beat this girl today. I'm not going to sit here for you to take that coke spoon or that fufu steak to beat Grace today. You're not going to beat her. I'm going to take Grace and take her to my house and she's going to go be there and I'll spend the night there with, to avoid you from abusing her. So he was the person that I saw, and I was attached to that could make me happy and stuff. So that's how I ran to his place. Mm-hmm. And when I went, I knocked at his door, and the way I knocked at his door was like someone was trying to break his door down. And he was like, who's knocking my door down? And they're trying to break it down. And then I said, because I used to call him Papa, and I said, Papa, it's me. He said, who? I said, it's me, Grace. And he said, Grace, what? Oh, okay, I'm coming. So when he, came to the door and opened the door and he saw me because I was running, so I was breathing fast. And then he asked me, Mommy abuse you? You run away from the house, mommy beating you? Because most of the time when mommy wants to beat me, I will run away from the house. But then when she catch me again, then the beating gets double because for running away. So she's gonna add it like 2 times for running and for what she was beating me for.
Yeah.
So I told her, I told him that, oh no, mommy didn't beat me, but mommy want to take me back to Liberia, and I don't want to go to Liberia. I want to go back to my family on the camp. But I have this cat. And he said, what cat is that? So I took the cat from my dress and I showed it to him. I said, oh, I see the cat in my picture on the cat, my name on the cat. He said, yeah, this is your UN cat that UN gave us. You remember? I said, yeah. He said, and I said, but what can I do with this cat? Can this free me? He said, yeah, it can free you. So, and I said, but read it to me, what it says on it. And that's how, he said, what is on the card, that when UN, United Nations card, Liberia refugee, all those location and stuff, the person who owns the card and what it does, for a person. And then I said, but can the cat really free me? Because I'm tired of living with mommy and I want to go back home. And I stated that even if my brothers and sister, because at that time my mom had already passed away, she passed away in 2003. And at that time I was between, I'm sure, like 19, 18, 19, like that. I think I was 19 years old. And I said, I really want to go back home. So even if my brothers and sisters would don't have food, but even if it is the sand from the ground, I'd rather stay with them and eat that sand. But I don't want for mommy to take me with her to Liberia, which means I will never see my family anymore again. And I don't want to go. So can you take me somewhere? And that's how he said, yeah, we can try to go to social welfare office. So I went back home because I have to hurry to go back home. So what I did, I didn't take the cat with me. I actually left the cat with him. And mommy came back looking for the cat. I remember she was asking me, who took the cat from on the table? And I denied. That was the first time I lied to her.
Right.
And I wasn't lying, but I was trying to save myself. And she asked me, she said, did you take the cat from the table? And I look at her within the eyes, because I've never looked her in the eyes, because I'm always like, my head down or tilt on the side and listen to what she has to say. But that day, I told her, no, I didn't take the cat. She said, you didn't take the cat? I said, no, I don't know where the cat is. I haven't seen any cat in the house. And she knew that I was lying because she could recognize the fear in me. But even though I was trying to be brave to tell her that, no, I wasn't the one who stole the cat, but she still could identify because she's a smart lady. And so, but she's trapped in a pressurizing me. She said, I'm going to beat you if you don't tell me. And she beat me, but I didn't tell her because I told her that in my mind, I already made up my mind that I'm going to be free. So
Yeah.
I would sacrifice myself for whatsoever beating for this time, because I know that if that cat reaches to any other big person hand, it's going to let me go back home. But this time, I'm not going to give her the cat. And I'm not going to allow her to register me behind me without me agreeing to follow her willingly, or rather want me to follow her and never see my family again. So I made that sacrifice that day. And I denied that I stole the cat. And she beat me. So when I went back, she left the house again. When she left the house, I don't know where she went, but that time I was desperate. So I was trying to do things quickly. And I ran away from the house again the second day. And I went to Coach, which I also call my pa, because I call him Coach also. And I said, Papa, because he told me to come to the house at a certain hour that I would meet him so we can go. So when I went, luckily I met him there, and that's how we went to the social welfare office on the camp. And a lot of children on the camp too was being abused. But the issue is that the law isn't strong. It's now that when you abuse someone, even though it's still there, it's something that is hard to go away. But it's now that it's a little bit stronger than before. Then, during the time I was on the refugee camp where you can, abuse people like that, children and stuff like that, and
Right.
make them your child slave and stuff like that, outside child, because in Liberia, in the culture, we call it outside child. Someone you can be outside child to another person, family. So, and that's how we register the card, and plus, and I stated everything, the way I worked, and the woman saw me, and I looked so skinny, wasn't eating, all those things. She wrote all the information down, and they were ready to put mommy in jail. The lady was ready to send the police to go and collect her, for her act, for what she's been doing. But then I told them, it doesn't work. And I said, I don't, do punishment, even though I know what I went through wasn't good. So I said, I leave it with God. God will be the one to judge her and stuff. But I just want freedom to go back home. So all the things that I stated, they needed mommy to sign the paper, and for my name, my last name to be changed from Noden to Freeman, because the social welfare lady couldn't send me with my name, having Noden on it and not having my actual Freeman name, so that has to be changed too. So they changed that, and they wanted mommy, who was the one who's doing the act, to me to come and sign the paper by saying, I released this person so and so day and so time. And when the police went to get mommy to come to sign the paper, mommy refused to follow them. Mommy said, as far as she's concerned, I'm who to tell her that I'm not following her Liberia. I'm who to take her to social welfare or to the police, station, all those things to happen. As far as she's concerned, that I'm going to follow her to Liberia, and she's not going to sign the paper for me to go back home. So the police people had to force her, and still she refused. So they came back to the social welfare station without her being there. So that's how I asked if someone can sign the paper for me. And then the social welfare lady said, oh, my pa said I can sign the paper on behalf of mommy if she doesn't want to sign the paper, so Grace can be free and stuff. So that was how my pop signed the paper, and then I was free. But I didn't just go back home to my family right away. I was still with mommy for 1 or 2 more days before I can leave her place.
What was that experience like, being in the house after knowing that you're free with Mame?
Oh, it was scary. It was scary because if you are used to someone abusing you, and then you tell on the person about what they've been doing to you, it's scary. And you cannot even stay with them in that same environment. You get that, kind of like a awkward, scary feeling in you that they're gonna do something, more bad to you, because you already know them for who they are.
Right.
So I was afraid, and that's how I took my things and I stayed with my pop, and that's how my sister and my brother they came, I went back the next day to mommy place in the morning time, like afternoon time, on the day for my brothers and sisters to come to pick me up. That's how they came. They collected my stuff,
Wow.
and I went back home to with my brothers and sisters.
And your mother passed away by that point, right?
Yeah, my mom passed away in 2003, so I was 13 years old at that time.
And at this point, you're 19?
Yes,
19.
I was 19. Yeah.
At this point, you came back to the refugee camp, and then there was a lady from Strong Heart organization that your twin brother introduced you to, which was based in Liberia. They ended up flying you to Liberia. And was that with your family or no?
Yeah, with my family.
So with your family, and that introduced you to a platform to kind of share your story.
Okay, so after I left mommy's house, because it was the same refugee camp, but the refugee camp is so big, like you can walk 2-3 hours from your place to another person's place or whosoever that you're gonna see. So after I took my stuff from mommy's house, and my sisters and my brother came, they collected me while I went back home. But I also didn't just want to be home, but was trying to follow up my education, because I still needed education. I still needed to, go further in school to continue my education. So in order to get education is also a money. So I wasn't going to the Blue Brown School, which was the school built by UN, and I wanted to go to a Catholic school too, because that was more, it's kind of like built on a UN, but also had a Ghanaian involved into it a little bit, but basically belongs to UN because they were the one who built it.
Right.
But then I also went to Budubran Refugee Community School. So that was the first school that UN built, and that was the senior high school that people will want to graduate from, because that was the other option there. Or the rest of the other school was kind of like a private owned schools that you have to pay higher price to go to and get your education there. So so my fees actually, so I was able to also not pay from my pocket because I don't have work. So, but my fees were paid by some of the teacher, and mostly by my pap, and he helped pay some of my tuition. And then later on, I was able to have someone to help me from the UN area to help with scholarship and to pay for my school. So I was able, but it wasn't that enough to pay for the scholarship to cover. So I still needed people to help with paying my school. So the person who really did most of the paying was my pap. And then after war, in that period, my brother Gabriel, my twin brother, went on a program, because on the refugee camp we had a lot of people, like international, they come in having the HIV workshop, having this thing, having this missionary sharing toys, books, to bring in flip-flop, all those things on the refugee toys. They would distribute it for every kid on the refugee camp. So what they would do, they would assemble every kid that will stand online, and then you'll come in. They will give you 1 or 2 toys, and then you go back home, just for a kid to have a toy to play with, or a book to see images and they'll be able to identify and learn, or something like that. So in that process, my brother was there for that event, for the HIV event thing that was happening on the camp. And that's how he came across Corey Shepard Stern. And that's how I think Corey asked him, because I wasn't there. So I'm just quoting in a little bit that I can remember from what he stated, that the lady met him and asked, who your parents and stuff. And he said, well, I don't have parents. I'm orphan on the camp, but I do have my brothers and sister. Yeah, and that was how. And then the lady later on saw um my brother and sister, but she never met me really in person. I wasn't ready because I was mostly away most of the time with finding solution to problems, finding solution to me going to school and stuff. So when the lady came to my mom's place to look to see the rest of my family, I wasn't there. I was absent. And then when I came back home, and then I got the message from my family saying, oh, the lady, this white lady came who wants to help us and stuff. They're going to take us to Liberia and do this to give us education. It's a program. So in order to take someone from a refugee camp like that, it is difficult because you're talking about life. No one can ever just go somewhere and say, oh, I'm going to take this kid and take them to whatsoever country, even if it is Liberia. So the Ghanaian government wanted to know, and people on the refugee camp wanted to know, how sure these people who are trying to help us are people to be trusted with refugee kids, if they're not going to sell us or if they're not going to enslave us and stuff. So that was a big issue. That was another case that we'll have to deal with and things. So they also have to sign paper on the refugee camp saying that they are taking the Freeman family to open a program, because the deal was that UN was still going to help refugees, to send them to Australia, send them to Norway, send them to Canada, because those were the three countries that UN was sending people, because UN sent people to a lot of refugees to the US here. That's why a lot of refugees, you find a lot of Liberians in Philadelphia, Minnesota, in those other states, because UN was the one who sent them, yeah, through immigration program thing.
Yeah.
So at that time, UN was trying to help children who are orphan, who doesn't have parent and stuff like that, to resettle them, to do that resettlement program for them. But when Straw Hat came in by saying that, oh, we want to help this kid and we want to show them to their country, since they left their country when they were 8 months old, and the other rest were like, my brother was like 6 or 7, my brother and sister like that older, but rather take us back home to give us education. So, and then UN said, okay, in order for you guys to do that, you guys have to sign this paper. And we're going to do a follow up on you guys to make sure that you guys are in Liberia with the kids, not taking them or to go do enslavement or something with them. So that's how they flew us. Strong had then signed the paper with UN people on the refugee camp, stating that they're going to help us and give us education and make us who we want to become, because there are people there to help people who experience trauma and make you find your way in this life. So that's how you entrusted them, and the entire paperwork was done, and they signed the paper for us to be honored by governed by Strong Heart organization. So that's how we fled. They fled from the refugee. I mean, from the refugee camp to Liberia, because the program was open in Liberia. The first program for Strong Heart was based in Liberia.
Right.
And that's how we went Liberia. And from that point, that's how in 2011, Strong had brought me to the US here, because of PepsiCo company was trying to make my story with their business, all those things. So that's how I was able, and Strong had chose me to come to the US. So that's PepsiCo was the first um, people that host an event in Arizona, Tucson, for me to speak. So that was the first place I ever like explain to people who I am.
That's just phenomenal. I mean, I can't even imagine, going most of your life through trauma and hardship and having this opportunity now to come to the US and share your story at these event centers with many people. What was that experience like for you?
So it was a scary experience because one thing is that you take someone who have never been exposed to things before, nothing, you come from in it's like you take a person from the bush and you put them in the city and the person first time seeing a car. What do you think? What gonna happen to your mind?
Yeah.
You're gonna get a shock. So the first thing I was shocked. I was shocked by so many things, by the machine, by escalator. I didn't know how to ride escalator, and I saw it for the first time at the airport in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was crying. I said I want to go back Africa because I didn't know, and I didn't know how to ride it and stuff, elevator, all those things. I didn't know how to use them, what it is, what type of machine, that talks, that makes sound, all those things. So I got a cultural shock from that. So I was afraid and I love it because it felt different. The food, the people, everything is different, looks different in my eyes. Like my sleep time, it changed, all these things happening to you. So it's hard, even though you are, yeah, they brought you here for the first time for a purpose, but then you also been shocked by so many things. So it was a hard experience to adapt to. It's like it wasn't just like, oh, I like it. No, it's something that you questioning yourself, you asking people, what is this? You're not understanding a lot of discussion things, a lot of talk, you lost. So it was challenging for me, and it was more of like cultural shock. So hearing that, when I came and I did that, speaking for PepsiCo company, and I went back. So that is the thing, is that now I'm here for a school. I'm not sponsored by Strong Heart organization because Strong Heart organization who promise to help kids who pass through trauma and stuff, they didn't fulfill that purpose as they said that they were going to do for my entire family, and I was kicked out of the program. So being in this US for the second time, I actually came to the US for the second time in 2014 in December. So, and I've been sponsored by this lovely lady called Sima Mata. So she's the lady that I met in Liberia at that time when I was in Strong Heart organization, and she went to visit the program, and that's how she and I like automatically connected together. And then she saw me and she loves me, and I really love her. And then she started to call me her little sister from that point. So we built connection from that point in Liberia in 2010 when I met her. And when things fall apart between Strong Heart and I, she was the only person that could help me to say, what do you want? What can you fulfill in this life? Because one thing, she's not a wealthy lady, she's not rich, but her heart is bigger than a wealth. Her heart is bigger than a person who make millions of dollars, because she wants to actually help someone who cannot see themselves or who cannot find their path, but actually make them know that, you know what, if I gave you a helping hand, I know that you'll be able to stand, and I know you'll be able to make a lot of changes in this world. So through her, that's how I was able to come to the US in 2014 in December. And that's how, by the help also of House of Tutors, because 2011 when I came to the US, House of Tutors knew me at that time. And from that point, House of Tutors said, oh, if Grace having any problems right now with her former program, I can be able to help. So they also collaborated with my sponsor to help bring me here. So House of Tutors were the one who actually gave the visa for me to come to the US. So I attended that House of Tutors for a year and some months, and then later on, through the help with House of Tutors, my sponsor, I was able to get connected with Concordia University, there where I'm president at, and pursuing my education in becoming a nurse.
Now, what do you hope to do when you receive your nursing degree?
Okay, so my hope is that to become a nurse. So when I get that accomplished, is to live in the US, but also I want to travel back home, work there, and help my country, because when I was there, we don't have a lot of like uh, nurses who are really exposed to new technology, advanced studies and stuff. Even though we have nurses, but it's not like really advanced because of the technology. So me being in the US here and in Concordia and getting my education in nursing, that is a big deal for me. When I go back home, I'm gonna be well respected where I got the degree from. And I'm gonna be able to work, and I'm gonna be able to share that idea to people who doesn't have it, or who don't have that idea in my country, to help the other nurses or help the other health workers or doctors, that I'll be able to share my idea, and then also uh, make people from the US here to help volunteer, to help with the technology and stuff there. So that is my goal also.
That's
So
great.
yes, to work back and forward with the US and Liberia.
You mentioned in an article, and quote, I tell you this for one reason today, to ask that when you think about refugees and the lives they are forced into, please remember what put them there. Before being a slave, before losing my mother, my troubles began with war. Most refugees' troubles begin with anger and guns and scared people running. If we are talking of helping refugees, let us first talk about helping to keep people from becoming refugees. How do you help and support people that grow up in hostile and dreadful circumstances from becoming a refugee and experiencing tragic hardship? Can you elaborate a little bit about that and, kind of what's behind that?
Yeah, okay. So the reason why I stated that in that article is that because the understanding of people is different. The way you think is not how other people think. And the what you experience, some people may hear or see it, but the translation there is different. So most time people think that, oh, when you're refugee or when you leave your country, they always say, why you leaving your country? You know, why you leaving your country and coming into my country? But they don't understand why or what make that person to leave their country to come into your country. It's like refugee. So refugee is not a name to be called, because I find it to be terrible. It's not fun name. It's like it's a shameful name if someone say, "Oh, you're refugee," because you know why? You don't have nothing. You are limited to everything. You are being commanded. the people will tell you this, tell you that. You have to do this. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. You don't have freedom when you are a refugee. So if people don't know what put you there, you have to make them know. So that's why I actually stated that, because they should know that a person will not just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm leaving my home and I want to come to your home." No, they should know what started it. So the problem is that being a refugee, a person didn't just decide one morning decided, "Oh, I want to be a refugee, so I want to go live on a camp and let UN support me." No, the thing that we should look at the souls of refugees, and the soul of a person become a refugee is your own nation, is your own people, is your own government. So if the government can stop embracing war, can help the citizen to be at peace, that we can be at peace with the government, that's going to be fine. That will not make a person or young kid who struggle, who pass through a lot of things, a person like me, or someone who mom or parents got burned in a home or got slaughtered by whatsoever machine and stuff, will be a refugee. If the government can stop being bad, things will be fine. So a person doesn't choose to be a refugee, but your government choose you to be a refugee. So that's why I kind of like stated that in that article, is that, to make people know, is that we didn't just wake up one day and say we want to be a refugee. We didn't choose to have the name to be called refugee, but it's actually the government. So if we can stop the government from being crazy, and then we all can be safe, we all will not flee our country in fear to run to another country to have, shelter there, or to find shelter, or to be rejected. So now within this world that we are living in, is that now we have, like, on the refugee camp, you don't have technology, or in Liberia, you don't have technology equal to the US, or equal to some part of the world that is worthy and stuff. So since now we have those technology, I can say that every person or nation or every child that is in a fear place should come up. I know it's going to be hard, because you're going to have people trying to track you down, your family, to kill you and stuff. But actually, should use technology to be able to lift their voice. Let technology be their voice. Or you can do a peaceful protest, you know. But also, I I would say that technology should be the main thing, because technology is the one that make people go, why? If people can act crazy on YouTube, on Snapchat, and things can spread wide, then why cannot be a person voice who's crying somewhere can use technology to use that to spread their voice, so that people, so the higher head or power can come to their aid to help them out of the problems that they are experiencing. So my saying here today would be that any child or any person who's going through a hardship, I know sometimes it's hard to bring yourself out because of the fear, because you don't want to be murdered, or you don't want to be killed, or you don't want to be you don't want your beating to be added up. But if you have technology, you should rather use that technology to spread your fear out to people, so that things can be settled.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of using technology as a way to support significant things that are happening around the world, instead of other things that we kind of use it for, in our own lives. So that's powerful, and I appreciate you kind of sharing that for people that are on the other side of the world that may not feel like they can do much. As you were saying, peaceful protests or raising your voice and sharing information. Those things are things that everyone can be able to do. So yeah, I think that resonates with me and many people that are probably listening to this as well. So looking back at everything that you've been through, the trauma, the hardships, the amazing successes of sharing your story with many people, what is one value or mantra that reflects in your life and work today?
Prayer, because prayer is the key. Prayer answer every problems that a person is going through, no matter what you believe in, if you can pray to that or you believe in it, and then it will work. So I believe in God because I'm a Christian, because the way I was raised. So prayer is the key. Prayer is the answer to my problem. So, and also telling myself that never give up, because you have to tell yourself success doesn't start from the physical part of a person. It starts from the inner part of a person. So if you can convince your mind to tell yourself that, oh, even though this thing is so hard for me, it's so difficult, who am I to do this? I cannot do it. But if you can at least encourage yourself, because sometimes it's hard to encourage yourself if you are down. It's hard for you to, lift your spirit up. But if you can say to yourself one or two words by saying, oh, I believe in myself and I know I can do this. And that will actually make you transparent into any problem that you're facing, any obstacles that is so difficult for you to pass through. But by believing in yourself can help you be transparent to your own obstacle. So that's what I use. That's why I'm able to convince myself, because sometimes in life it's not easy. It's really hard, and especially me, in America, is very challenging with my background. Things that I experience is hard. Sometimes it's challenging for me, but every time I tell myself, I say, you know what, you have people around you, but you have those people, but the thing that you have to believe within yourself. So I use prayer to lead me. And I tell myself by repeating words to myself and say that never give up. Because I know I believe in myself. And I know that I can make myself to be magical to pass through my own problems. So those are the two things that I'm able to use to lift my spirit up, to keep me going this way, not to give up, even though I know things are hard.
That's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. What are some ways that people can connect with you moving forward?
Ways that people can connect with me?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's kind of listening in right now and, really loves your story and just wants to be able to connect with you or reach out to you, what's the best way that someone can be able to do that?
You can, okay, because it depends it can be true, because sometimes it's just hard to also connect with people, because this world you have to know who is who.
Right.
And if that story really touch a person, because some people say, oh, your story really touched me, but then you look at it they want to benefit, they want some type of benefit from you. So it's kind of like a risk factor there. But if a person who's genuinely being touched by the story and want to hear more of me, I can send emails out, because I'm not like a business person that say, oh, I have a business card and I give you cards and stuff. No,
Right.
I can say, I actually would communicate. If you're distant, I can communicate with you through email. But if you are in the same state as me, and the person will say, oh, I want to invite you to this place. Can you please really speak to share your story, because it's powerful, because I want you to enable other people through your story. That's kind of like a decision that I have to make. And if I agree to it, then yes, I can do it to help people, to continue helping people, to continue reaching out to people through my story.
Right. Well, Grace, I appreciate you so much for just kind of having this conversation. And I know many people will be touched by it and impacted as much as I am. And I definitely am praying for you and supporting you and rooting you through for the next steps of your life. So please keep me posted and keep me in the loop, all the great things that are ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
This concludes our episode of Africa and Us. Thank you for listening. Be sure to share the episode and follow the journey on social media with me at Nate Araya. Be encouraged.